In the late 1980s, a dark mystery unfolded in Fresno, California, surrounding the disappearance of 16-year-old Theresa Ann Bier. Born on April 16, 1971, Teresa had a difficult childhood marked by her mother's severe mental illness and her father's mental struggles from being a Vietnam War veteran. At the age of 3, she suffered severe injuries from her parents, including broken bones, which resulted in her and her sister being placed in foster care. David Bier, Teresa's father, sought to regain custody of his daughters after they were placed in foster care by social services. David eventually won custody. After he gained custody, he remarried and the family moved to Southern California. However, the living conditions did not improve for Teresa and her sisters. Later, Teresa moved back to Fresno, where she lived with her great-grandmother and then her uncle, John Richmond, who was known as Blind Johnny. As she grew older, Teresa faced alleged abuse in her uncle's home. Blind Johnny was rumored to have subjected her to mistreatment, including making her miss school to babysit his children and facing possible sexual abuse. Blind Johnny was not a good man. He had a 17-year-old girlfriend called Tamara living with him when he was 42 years old, even after getting custody of Teresa. By the age of 16, Teresa struggled academically, was placed in special education classes, and described by teachers as slow. Her difficult experiences left her withdrawn, becoming a shell of herself. The sources emphasize her challenging life, but specific details about her interests or relationships remain scarce. Blind Johnny had a neighbor called Russell Welch, who was also known as Skip. He was a 43-year-old man and a friend of Blind Johnny. Skip lived in California and worked as a house painter. He was also known to be a bit unusual and had a fascination with Bigfoot and other imaginary creatures. One day, he asked Blind Johnny if he could take Teresa, who was 16, on a camping trip to the mountains to search for Bigfoot in June 1987. Even though this seemed a bit strange, clearly Blind Johnny didn't particularly care. Now Russell Welch was 43 years old, wanting to take a 16-year-old girl out on a camping trip, and that says all you need to know about who he was really. He was a house painter but didn't really work and mostly just lived off disability checks. Although I couldn't find anything to suggest that he was actually disabled. And allegedly Skip was also a meth addict. That's quite important to remember for later on in the story. On June 1, 1987, Skip persuaded Teresa to join him on a camping expedition at Shut-Eye Peak in California. Using the excuse of going to school, Skip got Teresa out of her house. Instead of heading to school, they embarked on a journey to the mountains for what Skip presented as an exciting camping adventure. The choice of Shut-Eye Peak was not random. It was an area known for rumors of Bigfoot sightings, and Skip, with an intense interest in the mythical creature, saw it as the perfect location. The allure of unraveling the mysteries surrounding Bigfoot and the potential for an extraordinary encounter fueled Skip's enthusiasm for this camping trip, as he was a self-proclaimed Bigfoot expert. Upon reaching Shut-Eye Peak, they set up their tents, immersing themselves in the midst of the rumored Bigfoot territory. Skip, driven by his peculiar fascination, engaged Teresa in exploring the wilderness, hoping to catch a glimpse of the elusive creature. However, behind the guise of a Bigfoot adventure, there were suspicions about Skip's true intentions, especially given his previous inappropriate behavior. It is believed by some that Skip may have had ulterior motives, potentially involving harm to Teresa. The specific details of their activities during this camping trip are not explicitly provided in any available information. Sometime after, on the 1st of June, when Teresa failed to show up at school, Blind Johnny received a phone call from the school asking where she was. He was surprised she wasn't at school but made up some excuse to the school, and he then went out to ask around if anyone had seen her. He knew that Skip was the one to pick up Teresa to take her to school, so naturally Skip came into the conversation when he was asking around the neighborhood about Teresa. All the neighbors were shocked to hear that a 16-year-old girl had been allowed to go with that man. They all said that he was bad news. After nothing came up about Teresa's whereabouts, that night at 9:30 p.m., Johnny called the police to report Teresa as missing. We don't know if Teresa was truly missing or just with Skip in the mountains at that point. We do know that before they headed into the mountains they stopped at Skip's daughter, Chandra Welch's place, because he was having trouble with his car. That was the last time anyone other than Skip had seen Teresa before they went into the mountains. 4 days later, after Teresa was reported missing, on Friday the 5th of June, Skip's car, a 1976 Chevrolet Monte Carlo, was found by the police at a trailer park near the town of North Fork, which was just a small community in the foothills of the mountain. According to reports, at some point in the previous couple of days, Skip had come back down from the mountain without Teresa and went to the home of his friend named Dorothy Davis, who lived right behind the trailer park his car was founded at. Dorothy would later tell the authorities that when Skip returned from the mountains, he was extremely upset and was quite possibly under the influence of drugs or something. Remember that Skip was rumored to be a meth addict. He told Dorothy that he had left a girl in the mountains and a satanic group had got hold of her and she was physically changed into something all white looking. People speculate that this could have been one of the many side effects of crystal meth. It's a very powerful and addictive stimulant that can cause people to have a false sense of happiness, a false sense of confidence, and a general euphoria. It is a very dangerous drug, and most people report just trying it once before immediately being addicted. Their entire life changes in the moment they decide to have crystal meth for the first time, but euphoria is only one of many side effects of meth. In Skip's case, he may have suffered with panic aggression, severe depression, violent mood swings, increased sexual activity, risky sexual behavior, confusion, memory loss, paranoia, psychosis, violence, and a total break from reality. Skip could have suffered from psychosis or hallucinations due to meth use, hence, seeing Teresa be taken by a satanic group and transforming into something all white looking. Or he could have deliberately made up this story to try to cover his own back. He could have maybe hurt Teresa himself because of the aggression caused by crystal meth, or his behavior could have had nothing to do with drug use. We will never know, as he was generally just a bad person, but we must consider all angles. Then, a week after Teresa was reported as missing, Johnny received a phone call from a young woman who warned Johnny on behalf of Skip, saying that Skip is packing a pistol and if Johnny continued to make trouble, his kids would get hurt. She even told him to tell the police that Skip had taken Teresa to school and he dropped her off and some blonde girl picked her up. Such aggressive behavior from Skip clearly shows that he had something to hide, and he even wanted Johnny to change the story to the police to throw them off track. These actions obviously suggest that Skip did something that he doesn't want anyone to find out about. We don't really know if by this time the authorities had actually sent people into the mountains to search for Teresa. We hope they did, but we cannot be sure as we don't have any sources suggesting it. But they did go around interviewing Skip's family and friends to find out where he was, because he was missing. They didn't know where Skip actually was at this point. In the process, they interviewed a 17-year-old girl named Michelle Ryan. She told them a very concerning story. Like Teresa, Michelle had also been lured into the mountains by Skip under the guise of hunting for Bigfoot, but unlike Teresa, Michelle listened to her gut, as she felt very uneasy going into the mountains with just him. so she brought along 2 of her male friends who likely ended up saving her life when Skip started to turn on her while they were in the mountains. Her friends protected her and she was able to escape from the mountain alive. She also said that she had been warned by Skip's daughter Chandra beforehand about going into the mountains with Skip, but since she was very intrigued and interested in seeing Bigfoot, so she went with him against her better judgment. Now, before we get back to Teresa's case, I would like to show you some truly incredible products that I have found which will help you and your loved ones protect themselves in this harsh world. The first product that I've found is this multifunctional self-defense pen. Yes, you heard that right, a pen that can be used for self-defense. In my opinion, it is one of the best self-defense tools out there, as it is easy to use, easy to carry, it serves many functions and most importantly it is legal everywhere, unlike the other self-defense items like tasers and other sharp objects which are banned in some countries and places. In addition to self-defense, this pen can break glass in emergency situations, has a strobe light which can blind potential attackers, it has a built-in whistle. It has built-in screwdrivers, heck it can even be used as a bottle opener. This truly is the best self-defense product on the market and the best gift idea for your loved ones. I would even buy one for myself because it is so cool. And if you don't like the product or for any other reason it also has a 180-day money-back guarantee. The price of this wonderful pen is just $39. That may be too much for some but it is well worth the price. Click on the first link in the description for more information and to buy the pen. You think that amazing pen was all I found? A self-defense tool can only get you very far. The main thing is your physical capabilities. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be a 7-foot-tall jacked husky, you just need the right guidance to understand the moves to survive and defend yourselves and your loved ones. But finding the right guidance is hard and time-consuming with all the nonsense and misinformation on the internet. That is why Mike Gillette, a former SWAT commander, an Army paratrooper, an elite tactical trainer and a bodyguard to Fortune 500 executives and film stars like Sylvester Stallone, created this real-life self-defense program for ordinary men and women who want to know how to handle a situation if the worst ever happens to them or their family. Whether you're a college student, a 35-year-old couch potato who's never lifted a fist in anger or a 70-year-old grandma, the minute you finish this program you'll have the ability to seriously hurt someone. This program is really useful and affordable and has a 60-day money-back guarantee, so you really have nothing to lose. Even if you think you don't need it, you should definitely check out their website because it will definitely change your mind. For more information about this program, click the second link in the description. Now, all the self-defense tools and techniques in the world can only get you back safely to your house, so none of it matters if your own home isn't safe. It's plain to see that there's been a massive trend in recent years towards disrespect for the rule of law. Things are happening that were unthinkable back in the day: home invasions, daylight holdups, endless scams. There are also new home security risks that never used to exist. Anyone can start researching you online and potentially learn where you live, how much money you have, when you will be away from home and where your vulnerabilities are. You could be being targeted and have no idea what's about to happen until bam, your door comes flying off, and in they come, with guns and machetes. But you can stop them in their tracks, if you know how. One of your most vital priorities in these times is to make your home as secure as it can possibly be for you and your family. This ultimate home defense guide will help you make your house into a safe place for just $17, and yes, it also has a 60-day money-back guarantee, so if you ever regret any of the products and services for any reason, you will have lost nothing. But by choosing to ignore self-defense and home security could lose you everything. Now back to Theresa Ann Bier's case. Some days after the interviews with Skip's family and friends, on June 10th, the police finally found Skip hiding at his mother's house in Sunnyside, Fresno. He was first arrested not on the missing person case but on a drunk driving violation, but they soon realized he was the person they were looking for. Skip claimed that he had dropped Teresa off at school, but no one believed that, and he was swiftly arrested and they took him to the station for questioning. When they reached the station, he quickly changed his story again by claiming that Teresa had run away from him in the mountains around 7:30 p.m. on the first night they were there. He once again changed his story and claimed that she was actually taken by Bigfoot, but not to worry because she'd be happier there because Bigfoot are very intelligent creatures. It is very clear from these statements that he was mostly high on meth or some other substances during the questioning. Skip then came to an agreement with the authorities that he would show them the campsite where he and Teresa had stayed. He led the police into the mountains to a small grave of trees, along Brooks Creek, but only when they arrived there it looked like the campsite was only very recently left, even though at least a week should have been passed since Teresa and Skip went camping. There was still a smoldering fire at the center of the campsite, smothered by a heavy pile of damp pine needles. There were blankets hung up around. They also found a camera, a purse, a bra, a t-shirt with animal cartoons on it. Inside the purse they found many Polaroid photos, photos of the countryside, photos of Skip playing the guitar sitting on one of the blankets, and photos of Teresa herself. Through the Polaroids it quickly became very clear that this was not the real campsite that Teresa and Skip originally set up. Skip had staged this one. The real campsite was thought to be about 20 miles away, near an area called the Ghost Canyon. Now, what reason would someone have to stage a campsite, unless they're very concerned about the evidence against them that is going to be found at the real one? Still, there was no sign of Teresa despite continued searches over the coming weeks in both the staged campsite and the real campsite. They even sent out helicopters to the mountains through which they spotted a shirt on the hillside above the staged campsite, a blue shirt which belonged to Skip, with meth inside the pocket. Further interviews with Skip's friends and family also revealed that Skip at one point had told them about a rock near Ghost Canyon which was near the real campsite. He told them that a girl needed to be tied up to a rock and be sacrificed to the devil. Could this be what he had been trying to do with Michelle before Teresa? Had he finally succeeded with Teresa? Well, the authorities certainly thought so. By the end of June, Russell "Skip" Welch was arrested on charges of child stealing. Note that they didn't charge him for murder because they didn't find the body. They had no actual proof that Teresa was harmed by Skip. She was just missing, but we do know that she was last seen with him and he admitted as much. Nonetheless, Skip never ended up going to trial for these charges. By the end of September 1987, Fresno County authorities were forced to let him go just a couple of days before his trial. They did so to avoid double jeopardy, which basically means that you can't charge someone twice for the same crime. So if they charged him with child stealing, then they couldn't go back and charge him with murder, which is what they were really after. The deputy district's attorney did offer Skip a 1-year term on the child stealing charges if he signed a waiver allowing for a murder trial in the event of Teresa's body being found, but of course his public defender refused to let him sign the waiver. They even offered him a lower sentence if he showed them where Teresa's body was, but he again refused. So now Skip is back on the streets as a free man, with the deputy district attorney saying that if Teresa's body wasn't found he would refile the charges at a later date, which held a maximum of 4 years in prison. But the years passed and it never ended up happening. Despite multiple searches over the years, Teresa's body has never been found. And Russell Welch ended up dying in March 1998 at the age of 54 from coronary artery disease without ever receiving any punishment for his possible crimes. There just wasn't enough evidence to prove that Skip had hurt her nor of the probability of her being taken by Bigfoot. Some people do believe that Bigfoot abductions are very much real, but the chances are the truth here is much more mundane than that. Teresa went into the mountains with somebody who was known to be a creepy, violent guy who had spoken about sacrificing girls near the canyon. Skip most likely hurt her or killed her and hid her body somewhere where she could never be found. He knew the area very well, so she could be buried down a mine shaft on a hillside or got eaten by animals. Every year, hundreds of people disappear in the forests of North America, but I like to believe that maybe Teresa did escape, that she ran down the mountains to escape from her difficult past life. We can hope that she started a new life somewhere with a different identity, free from the traumas of her previous life, even though it is mostly unlikely. If you have any information about Teresa's disappearance, no matter how small it may be, you can contact the Fresno Police Department, who are very much still willing to look into her case. I'll leave details to contact them in the description box down below. If you enjoyed this video, you will likely enjoy my other video about teenagers who killed people just because they wanted to have fun.